So you are a micro dairy. Well, you have a micro dairy and a creamery. And kind of to start right off, what is a micro dairy? Like I know it's not this, but I'm imagining just like little bottles of milk. So what exactly is a micro dairy and how did you guys get started doing
I'm not sure there's an exact definition of what a microdairy is.
it?
We glommed onto the term, and the guy who makes the equipment we use is called Microdairy Designs.
Okay.
I guess if I wanted to define it, it would just be a very small dairy, and you process your own product and market it and sell it all yourself. You keep all the dollar. You don't spread it out to everybody else. Kind of
And
like a microbrewery, same kind of idea.
I like that. That's a very good kind of comparison there. And I mean, I'm sure that's probably a lot of work on your shoulders. I mean, not only collecting the milk, but processing it, bottling it. Like, I mean, how complicated and how time consuming is that whole process?
Way more than we thought when we started. Like when I started, like I grew up on a conventional dairy farm in the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, and we had 110 cows that we milked, and we farmed 600 acres,
Mm.
and I knew how long that took. So I'm like, when we started out, we had 2 cows that we bought off my parents, and I was like, this is going to take me like 20 minutes a day. No, way wrong. Like it takes 5 hours to process the milk now, and another 5 hours of chores, and then we deliver milk all over the place. Like I'm way busier than I thought I would be. Don't put it that way.
I can imagine. And so, what was kind of the inspiration behind doing all that? I mean, I know like being a dairy farmer is super complicated. It's a lot of hard work. You're waking up 3, 4 times a night to go milk cows. And so, what was the inspiration behind you guys controlling everything there? Like, what made you want to do that?
Well, when I had to leave my parents' farm, and that's a long story we can get into if you want, but when I walked away, I thought that was it for farming. I didn't think I'd ever own a
Mm.
farm ever again. Like we were talking about before the show started, it takes $1 million to start up a farm. Well, I didn't have $1 million, and just thought that was going to be it. And then Lisa and I got started with the idea of a small scale farm of any kind, and we bought a book because we were going to do a market garden, right? And we bought John
Mm.
Martin's Market Gardener book, and we found out real quick we don't like gardening on that scale. That was a lot of work, and we weren't very good at it. I'm a cattle guy. I'm an equipment operator, and it's just like, well, whatever. We'll try this. And then we found Micro Dairy Designs, Frank Kipe's company, and he's got how to have a 3 cow dairy, and it's like we could do that. That's not going to take that much effort. We found out it takes a lot more effort than that, but um, where was that? You got to keep me on pace here. I'm
Yeah,
getting,
no, just kind of the inspiration, but why you guys wanted to control all that from milking to processing to bottling. So
yeah.
you figured out the micro dairy thing. So what was next?
We figured that out. So the reason we did the micro dairy versus going and getting and buying the farm was like I'm a big Dave Ramsey guy, and I didn't want to get buried in a bunch of debt. So it
Hmm.
was less scary to say, hey, we can do this for the cost of a fancy pickup truck, or we can try and do something crazy that we're never going to be able to get in front of. We can either try and build something, or we can have a mountain dumped on top of us and try and dig out of it, right?
Yeah,
And
I mean that works.
yeah, yeah. So we bought 2 calves off my parents as they were going out of business, 2 heifer calves, and that gave us about 20 months to get the thing built, set up, and we did that. And that we got our license to start selling milk in March of 2020. Well, in Pennsylvania, the shutdown for COVID happened March like 14th or 15th. So we were literally open for 15 days. But we were food, so we were allowed to keep going. And at that point, I'm a real estate agent, and they told us there's not, that's done for a while. And so that just gave us 6 months where we could really focus on doing this, and people just started buying the milk, and it just kept going. And we went from really quick. We went from 2 cows to 4 cows to 6 cows. We milk 10 cows now.
That's impressive. So I mean that's kind of cool. Like doubling every couple of weeks. I mean 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And so what all went into the process of bottling on site? Like what kind of equipment did you have to buy, and what were some kind of growing pains you guys faced with that?
Um, the equipment Microdairy Designs, they sell you a full legal pasteurizing um,
Mm.
system. Everything comes with the system. You just have to have the buildings and the infrastructure built before it shows up. They've changed some of their business model in this 2 years too, since we first met those guys, and they're great. I mean, they're great with support. They sent us blueprints. I forwarded the blueprints to my inspectors. By the way, if you're going to try and do something like this, I mean, the inspector's your friend. Like always in the dairy industry, it's like you're scared of the inspector. Well, when you go to
Mm.
do this level, the inspector's actually your friend. And the inspector improved the blueprints. Told me, hey, if you can build that building like in the blueprints, we won't have any problems. So we built that building. And the first real growing pain we hit was I was scared to use the equipment because it's like
You didn't want to break anything. Yeah.
so we got over that real quickly though. And the next one we hit is just like we couldn't meet demand. We couldn't
Mm.
service the demand we were creating. Like that, we just kept hitting that, and we're still having that issue a little bit. That's the biggest thing though, is just like it's those three basic rules of starting a business, right? It's going to cost more than you think. It's going to take longer than you think, and you're not the exception.
I like that. Is that Dave Ramsey advice there?
Yes, it is. Like if you can't tell, I'm a huge Dave Ramsey guy. I actually coordinate the financial piece stuff at the church and all that stuff. And I
Oh, that's
really think,
cool.
yeah, I really think that is some of the crux for this is just like dairy farming has gotten so hard at any scale, whether it's 5,000 cows, 500 cows, or 50 cows, that we just had to come up with a new way, because the margins are so tight. We open the margins back up for ourselves, and by not going into debt to do this and staying small scale to figure it out, we kind of did what Fair Oaks Farms did. Now, if you don't know who Fair Oaks Farms is, that's the farm that started Fairlife Milk.
Hmm.
They had a pile of money. They could do it on a huge commercial scale, converting a commodity farm into a retail farm, where we didn't have a commodity farm, so we just looked at how do you do a retail farm, and we went straight into that, and that's been a huge benefit for us.
I can imagine. And I mean, so I was talking with your wife Lisa about you coming on the show, and I mean, you guys are micro dairy, so you don't have 100 head of cattle, which the normal dairy is milking. I don't know, two, three, sometimes four times a day. But you guys have this crazy concept of only milking once a day, which I mean, looking at it, it confuses me because you would think you got less cows, you need to milk more so you can make more profit. So what was the inspiration behind going through that once a day milking process? And then what does it look like for y'all? How well has it worked? And do you recommend it for other micro dairies?
Yeah, for any micro dairy, for any retail dairy, I would suggest it. I blew all the farmers I know, I blew their minds, all the dairy farmers, when I said we're going to try
Mm.
once a day milking. They're like, "Are you crazy? Like, what are you doing?" But it got to the point where between it's just me here, and Lisa. And Lisa does the marketing, and she does a great job of all this. I handle all the cow chores, and I process the milk, and we bottle together when she's not working because we both have off farm jobs too. And it was
Mm.
just a ton of work. And where when we switched to the once a day milking, we found a couple people who were doing it, and talked to them about it. And they said, that first transition for any cow that's in lactation is going to be brutal for you. You're going to feel like
Mm.
this was a bad idea because the production is going to just crater. And it did. But then on the backside of that, every time they've started a new lactation, that they've started producing milk again after the next calf, every one of those cows has been over 5 gallons of production in one milking for basically the duration of the whole lactation. They didn't go through like the normal curve where it's like they climb the mountain, then they plateau, then they kind of slowly slide down. They just kind of
Hmm.
went up the mountain and stayed there. And I don't know why that is. I can't explain it, but that's been our experience with it. And you know, at 5 gallons of milk, that's not what these cows could be doing. These cows could be doing, if we were milking them twice a day, they'd probably be making close to 8 gallons of milk. So we
Right.
do lose some production, but it's like I told my grandpa, I think I'd rather milk 8 cows once a day than 6 cows twice a day.